So David Pakman did a video a few days ago called "The People I Can Never Satisfy," and I'm gonna play some clips from it, and I'll tell you why it's probably the most frustrating experience I've had with watching one of his videos.
All right, I want to tell you guys about something that's been sort of going on behind the scenes at the show, and maybe it'll be interesting to you. And it has everything to do with people in my audience who are never going to be satisfied with this program, for lack of a better term. And maybe naively, over the last few months, maybe I thought that I could satisfy them in some way. And this doesn't apply to everybody, but there are also people in the audience that probably I should sort of be apologizing to, in the sense that I think that my naivete on this issue may have made the show worse for some of you over the last few months. And here's the realization that we've sort of come to as a point of departure for what we're talking about today. It's become very clear over the last, I would say acutely the last 3 months, but more bigger picture over the last year, that there's a slice of the left that's never going to be satisfied with this program unless I just become a different person with totally different views and a different moral grounding, and essentially am no longer me and the show is no longer this program. Now, of course, the entire right is dissatisfied with this program, other than the people who write to me and say, I don't agree with anything you say, but I watch to see what your take is, and I appreciate you being honest about it. But in terms of the positions I take, of course, the right doesn't agree with almost anything that I say on this program. But there's also a contingent on the left, which is far louder in the sense, in a sense, because they are at least, nominally part of my side, as the term is, that is never going to be satisfied with this program unless I just abandon everything I believe and take their positions. But over the last 3 to 12 months, it's become very clear that there is now a slice of the left that is not going to accept any position other than their position. And they won't stop calling me a DNC shill or other terms unless I take their positions. And what I want to tell you today is that it's not going any further. You're not going to be satisfied with this program, and maybe this isn't the program for you. Let me give you some examples, okay? Right now, these are maybe relevant examples. One is the Never Biden crowd, okay? The Never Biden crowd is never going to be satisfied with what I say unless I join them and say, I'm never going to vote for Biden. Now, I'm not going to do that at this point based on what we know. It's conceivable Joe Biden could go on a killing spree or something and I'd change my mind. But it's become clear that no matter how I couch the reality that based on everything I know right now, Biden's clearly better than Trump, and I plan to vote for Biden. I could talk about the Supreme Court. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I say. Unless I refuse to vote for Biden, there's a very loud contingent that shows up on my Twitter and Reddit and whatever. They're not going to be happy. 3. Now, there was a period of about 7 to 10 days where I had a contingent contacting me increasingly angrily saying, David, you're terrible. You're a shill because you're not covering her allegations. Now, over time, more and more clips have published to my YouTube channel. Now I believe it's 6 in total, where Tara Reade's allegations are discussed. Has this satisfied this slice of the left? No, of course not, because I'm talking about Tara Reade now, but I'm not saying the right thing, which I guess is Joe Biden's a rapist and I'm not voting for him. But of course, I'm not going to say that. Joe Biden hasn't been convicted of rape. He's not even accused of rape, if I understand the allegations correctly. And the reality is that either Joe Biden or Donald Trump are going to be president of the United States. On dozens of issues, I prefer Biden. Now, this is not some big theatrical, defiant performance for me. I'm living my life. I'm doing the show and advocating for the policies I support. And in November, I will essentially have 2 choices. And I've made clear as of right now which choice I'm going to make. I've not attacked Tara Reade's credibility. I've not come out and said her story makes no sense. I've not done any of those things. But this contingent didn't really want me to just talk about Tara Reade. They want me to say, never Biden. And they won't be satisfied until I say that. This is no way to run a show if I'm going to kowtow to these slices of the left that are hell-bent on getting specific statements out of me. They will never be satisfied. Recently, George W. Bush came out with this just milquetoast statement about unity around coronavirus. And I said, hey, George W. Bush is a war criminal, but compared to Trump, he sounds like a normal person. It's not praise of Bush. I'm not rehabilitating his image. And immediately dozens of comments and hundreds of Twitter and Facebook posts saying, "You are rehabilitating the image of a war criminal." Much like I can't open the eyes of a devout Trumpist, they're closed off. So are these leftists on this slice of the left. And it's sad, but I can't control it. All I can control is my show. And I apologize that over the last 3 months, there's been a naivete where I thought maybe there would be some way. It doesn't seem like there is. They're not going to be satisfied. Everybody should watch the shows they want, read what you want, come to your conclusions. But we're going to do the show this way, and that's the way it's going to be.
Roughly 2 minutes into that clip, and I actually cut that part out because I was trying to make sure I didn't use the whole thing. Pakman mentions that when he initially started his show, he would not give his opinion because he didn't want to offend anyone. He was very troubled by the idea of someone disliking his content. But eventually he shifted because, in his words, I have an opinion that I want to get out there. And to watch him get upset because his viewers are out there giving their opinion, it's very ironic. And listen, I can condemn very easily people who, he says people write anti-Semitic comments, stuff about whether it's his ethnicity, gender, perceived sexuality, all that stuff. I agree that that's problematic, that it has nothing to do with policy. Whenever it's something not pertaining to what you've actually said relating to politics when you're a political commentator, it shouldn't be a thing people say. But I actually read through the comments people have been writing to him. And for the most part, they actually are talking about policy. They're talking about his support for Biden, how it's antithetical to his policy views. And I find it comedic that during the video he mentions how, well, first of all, the title, "The People I Can Never Satisfy." And he goes into the Never Biden crowd, which I am proudly a part of. I'm not going to support a scumbag that I don't like just because Trump is worse. It failed to trick me in 2016. It failed this time as well, or it's going to fail this time as well in November. But regardless of that, people who are in that camp, who supported Sanders during the primary, oppose Biden not because of the way he looks, hell, not even because of these Tara Reade allegations, because there are multiple large variances in terms of policy proposals made by Biden with regard to Sanders. Sanders supports single payer. Biden doesn't. Sanders supports ending American interventions for the most part. Biden seems to kind of, he'll pick and choose. He'll say, yeah, we should be out of the Yemen conflict. But the point is, people who are in the Never Biden camp oppose Biden because of their policy disagreements. And Pakman made it clear that he was someone who agreed with Sanders on a lot of the ideas that he had. So when I watch him say that we can never be satisfied, when we were satisfied when Pakman would talk enthusiastically about single payer, about ending conflicts, just any type of social issue, it feels very strange to see him pretend that we're just this group of people, of dissatisfied voters who now hate him and his series. No, we have an issue with the fact that you, like Sanders, like Cenk, multiple other people who we saw during this primary criticize Biden for his opposition to single-payer health care, for trying to cut Social Security, multiple different things, are now telling us to support a man who has views that are antithetical to us simply because you believe the other person is worse. So to hell with whatever we want to see implemented. No, you have to support this person who doesn't agree with you, and I guess hope in 4 to 8 years you can try again. Oh, and if that person loses, get ready to be blamed for them losing, even though you didn't vote for Trump. And if you're in my circumstance, you live in a state that the Republicans haven't won in 30 years. So there's no way in hell you're going to have any, whatever, electoral college shenanigans aside. Going into the other parts of this video, he mentions how the left hated him because he wasn't calling Maduro a hero. I don't have that clip in the selection of clips I played from the video because I just didn't want to have the whole video. But this is not true. Members of the left, especially among that anti-Biden crowd, had a very clear ideology. We do not support Maduro. We do not think he's been good to the Venezuelan people. But we also don't support a foreign government, our government, the U.S. government, coming in and telling these people that Juan Guaido is their leader. Because he's not. If the people don't choose that as their leader, then it should not be up to us to tell them who their leader is. You know, but it was very clear at multiple instances. You've had every prominent left-wing person who opposes Venezuelan intervention in by the United States say we don't support Maduro or Guaido. We just don't think our government should be telling people who their leader is. So that's a lie on Pakman's part. Now, I have not seen a single left-wing person, whether it's on Twitter, and I'm sure there might be one or two out there, but the majority of us are not backing Maduro staying in power because we think he's good. And then he mentions the George W. tweet, which I did a separate video on. I had to go back and look for it because I didn't heart it or thumb it up or anything like that. Where's that trash? Okay. He claimed that we made it seem as if he was rehabilitating a warmonger. Pakman wrote, when George W. Bush sounds reasonable, you know you have incompetent and impotent leadership. Now, the reason people got upset with him for this tweet is not because we disagree that it sounded more presidential than something Trump would say. We got upset with him because we have seen Republican pundits like Steve Schmidt and other never Trump people that are either conservative or left on social issues, you know, kind of like hybrids, like Klobuchar and the rest of them, where they basically use rhetoric to rehabilitate American figures who had policies that were just as disastrous, if not more, than what we currently have. A lot of us, for example, got upset when Obama would get praised for the normalcy that he brought to the White House as he took us from 2 wars to 7 and bailed out the bankers and among other things. So when you come and say, by the way, he's a war criminal, that doesn't escape from the fact that you are doing the same thing that other people do that want to rehabilitate this man's image to sell this narrative that Trump's rhetoric is so disastrous and the worst thing that ever happened to the U.S. Pakman also stated that in reference to people wanting the specific statements out of him, or rather, this is where he says people want specific statements out of him. This is no way to run a show if I'm going to kowtow to these slices of the left that are hell-bent on getting specific statements out of me. Well, I hate to tell you, but when you're a public figure with over 800,000 subscribers, I don't know what else you'd expect. Like, welcome to the internet. Welcome to being a notable public figure that has some backing. People are going to go on and watch your show and say, you should say this, you shouldn't say that. And if you believe your views are correct, you ignore them. Now, he added a comment by this woman, her name's Lisa Carr. If people don't like what they hear or see, they are all free to leave and unsubscribe. I've done it before. Well, no one ever stated that they've been forced to watch David. What this is really about is he's upset because I've seen him, he'll post responses, stuff people write on Twitter sometimes. He's angry that when he goes on his mentions on Twitter or into his YouTube comment section, he sees people who are upset with him for the position that he's taken. But as he admits, there are Republicans who agree with nothing on his part. So I don't understand where this is so bothering of him. It's kind of like this. You can't stop people from having the right to criticize you. Whether they post on some other website, on YouTube itself, Twitter, but you do have the right to ignore what they write. Think about it. All Pakman has to do is make his show, post his videos, write something on Twitter, and not read what people say back to it. It's a very simple thing to do. And like, I'm watching a man with over 800,000 subs complain about being criticized by people who are upset with who he endorsed, just as they are upset with who Bernie endorsed, just as they are upset with who Jacob endorsed. And just because they decide to make their criticisms visible, meaning they don't just keep it in their heads like I usually do. I don't typically write comments on people's stuff. They need to go watch someone else who they agree with. Well, hell, they agreed with you when you were talking about these other issues. So what, they can't have a couple of disagreements without having to get gone? So this is really a sense of entitlement, I think, on his part. He wants to make content without the headache of people being able to weigh in on it. And that's unfortunately not how this works. But if he truly does not want to be bothered by these types of things, he can just ignore it. If you piss off left-wing people, right-wing people, there's going to be a segment of them who watch your stuff despite not liking it. I watch Secular Talk all the time, and he has people who are literally subbed to his channel just to download his videos. But it's your job to take those people and what they're saying or doing and treat them like they don't exist. Because the majority of the people who watch Pakman's channel or any of these other people agree with them. That's why most of their videos have a bunch of upvotes, and it's a bunch of people in the comment section talking about how great they are, along with, a bunch of hundreds or thousands of likes on their tweets. It's so weird to see someone with this much support upset because a couple thousand people or a couple hundred watch but don't like him. Like, get over it. I personally don't watch people I don't like. That's why I don't watch Mark Levin or Ben Shapiro or Glenn Beck or Alex Jones or Sean Hannity, but there are people who do. And, it's a good thing for him because he gets the views off of their attention and his name put out there. So I really don't see, outside of his hurt feelings, where this is a downside for him. But yeah, he deserves the criticism he gets. We all get criticized. Learn how to ignore it instead of telling someone to ignore you.